How do I wire my sub? Dual voice coil, single voice coil, 4 ohm, 2 ohm, series, parallel, 1 ohm stable, 2 ohm stable. What does all of this mean? Don't worry, we got you. Stay with us as we cover this crucial subject. Welcome to our channel that reviews and demos all the best in car audio, performance, suspension, and more, because we don't drop stock. And if stock just doesn't cut it for you, then make sure you subscribe to this channel. Okay, now I've watched several videos on YouTube on this subject, and most of them have really great information. It just takes a while for them to get to the meat and potatoes of what you're probably looking for. So I'll give you the cliff notes as it pertains to the car audio world. And if you want to stick around for the in-depth explanation, all good. If not, no hard feelings. Now, these are the most common setups, and they account for about 80% or more of the configurations we do at Breaker Stereo. Okay, so if you're doing two woofers, then you'll need these two things to set up your bass system correct. Number one, a mono block amp that is stable at 1 ohm. And number two, a pair of dual 4 ohm woofers or a pair of single 2 ohm woofers. Okay, now write this down. Dual 4 ohms or single 2 ohms. In either case, we're gonna wire all the positives together, then all the negatives together in what we call parallel. Okay, and we'll wire it up in a box so you get a visual. First, starting with the dual 4 ohm. First, we wire the voice coils on the sub together like this, red to red and black to black. Then add a speaker wire to one positive and one negative. Then wire to the box terminal. Repeat on the other side. If you have a single 2 ohm, then just wire to the terminal. Then jump a wire from one terminal to the next terminal on the outside of the box, positive to positive and negative to negative. Then wire to the amp. Or run two separate speaker lines from the box terminal to the amplifier. And the latter is the recommended way, but you can do it the first way as well. If you're doing a single sub, then you'll need these two things. Number one, again, a monoblock amp that's stable at 1 ohm. And number two, a dual 2 ohm, then wire the two coils in parallel. Again, positive, positive, negative, negative. Now in the single subwoofer setup, if you're running an amp that max powers at 2 ohms, then you'll need a dual 4 ohm and run in parallel, or just a single 2 ohm. Okay, so here it is in writing. Take a screenshot. Okay, so if that's all you need out of this video, then go ahead and shop. But by the way, if you go to our website and you look up woofers, you can use the filters on the left to select the ohms you're looking for. Now, we also have the same filters on the amplifiers as well. But if you're sticking around, let's start with the basics. So ohms or impedance is a measurement of resistance, meaning the lower the impedance, the less resistance. And in most cases, the less resistance you give in an amp, the more power it will output. Now, some amps will give you the same amount of power output, regardless of the impedance range, like the JL Audio HDs, which give you the same output between 1.5 and 4 ohms. But most monoblock amplifiers aren't like that. So let's use something more common. And in this case, let's take a look at the Memphis PR Series 1000.1. It outputs 400 watts at 4 ohms, 750 watts at 2 ohms, and 1000 watts at 1 ohms. As you can see, the lower the ohms or resistance, the more power it outputs. Now let's talk about woofers. In most cases, woofers are either going to be dual or single voice coil. Now, single voice coils have a single set of positive and negative connectors, and dual voice coils have, yes, two sets. And they will normally be either 4 or 2 ohms, and sometimes 1 ohm, but again, that's not too common. So if you're shopping or researching online, you'll see a lot of single 4 ohms, dual 4 ohms, single 2 ohms, or dual 2 ohms. Okay, so how do I wire to get to the proper ohms needed? So a speaker can be wired in either parallel or series. Now, parallel means that all the positives go together and all the negatives go together. Now think of the definition you were taught back in school. Parallel lines run side by side, but they never meet. Now here's a simple formula for calculating voice coils wired in parallel. Now take the common ohms and divide it by the total number of voice coils. So as an example, let's use the most common wiring setup for two subwoofers that we talked about earlier. You have a pair of dual 4 ohm voice coils. Take the common impedance, which is 4, and then divide it by the number of voice coils, which is 4, and that equals 1. Or if you have two single 2 ohms, take the common impedance, which is 2 ohms, and divide it by the number of voice coil, which is 2, and then you also get 1. Another way to think of it is if you're wiring two voice coils in parallel, you can cut the common impedance in half. So dual 2 ohm goes to 1 ohm, and dual 4 ohm goes to, yes, 2 ohms. Okay, now series. Okay, on this you take one positive from one voice coil, then you wire to the negative of the other voice coil, and then you take the remaining positive and the remaining negative. This will increase the impedance or ohms by double. So in series, a dual 4 ohm goes to 8 ohms, and a dual 2 ohm goes to 4 ohms. See, you're getting it. Okay, here's an advanced wiring tip. Let's say you have an amp that max outputs at 2 ohms, and you want to run 2 subs. We'll take a pair of dual 2 ohms and wire each sub in series. So again, positive to negative on each sub. Then take the remaining positives and negatives and wire them in parallel. So you're taking your dual 2 ohm and you're doubling in series to 4 ohm on each individual woofer. So we made 4 ohm on one woofer and then 4 ohm on the other. Then we wire in parallel. Now remember, that'll take us to half. So that will give us a final impedance of 2 ohm. Okay, now you try. Now a single woofer that's 2 ohm wired in parallel is, remember, cut in half. Or use a simple formula. The common ohms divided by the number of coils equals 1 ohm. Now 2 woofers that are both dual 4 ohms in parallel equal, again, 4 ohm divided by 4 voice coils equals 1 ohm. Okay, and for you advanced folks out there, let's see if you can get this one. Now 2 woofers, both dual 2 ohms. First in series, then in parallel. Equals 2 ohms. Remember, series doubles up the common impedance from 2 ohms to 4 ohms, then parallel cuts it in half. Okay, hope that makes it easier. But if it's still a little too fresh, head over to the App Store and download Kicker's free app called Kicker U Lite. They have a section called Wiring Wizard where you can pick the number of woofers you want and the impedance, and they'll give you diagrams on how to wire them up. Okay, that's going to do it. Again, my name is Josh. I'm with Breaker Stereo and Performance. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.